When the German soldiers entered the city, they found the ruins from their bombings. They were surprised to find any life left in the city. Many small battles erupted soon afterwards. The German army encountered fierce resistance from not only the determined soldiers of the Red Army, but also from the patriotic civilians as well. Stripping the city of supplies, the Soviets prepared for urban fighting by fortifying many of Stalingrad's buildings to create strong points. Though some of Stalingrad's population left, Stalin directed that civilians remain as he believed the army would fight harder for a living city. The city's factories continued to operate, including one producing tanks. It was a turning point in the war on the Eastern Front. The Germans threw everything into the battle and almost captured the whole city, except for a small part of the factory district, which the Russians held against all attacks, and managed to supply from the other side of the river. Often two sides would be very close to each other. Hand-to-hand combat was very common. Many battles were fought with knives and bayonets. Bodies piled up in the streets. The average life expectancy of a soldier was less than a day. As the winter weather grew worse, the Germans found that they were stuck fighting an enemy who refused to surrender, and von Paulus asked Hitler's permission to retreat to secure his supply lines, which were becoming difficult because of the deep snow and freezing temperatures. Hitler refused and promoted von Paulus to field marshal, knowing that no German field marshal had ever surrendered. The Russians, who were much better winter fighters, surrounded the city and cut off all supplies to the Germans by land, so they had to rely on airlifts when the weather was suitable. This was not enough, and they started to run out of food and ammunition. The Russians then planned a counterattack. They massed forces on all sides of the German army and eventually had them surrounded again. The Germans surrendered, and the Russians had taken back their city. Georgy Zhukov was the brains behind the Soviet counterattack, and he went on to Berlin and became the most decorated officer in the Soviet Union. The Battle of Stalingrad lasted 7.5 months, and over 650,000 Axis soldiers died, and over 480,000 Russian soldiers died. This isn't counting the hundreds of thousands of soldiers that were missing or wounded on both sides. It ended with von Paulus surrendering. Without all the weapons and supplies, the Germans couldn't properly equip their troops, and the Germans were forced to have a never-ending retreat from the Russians, straight to the capital of Berlin. The Russians then took the city. This was the downfall of the Nazis and the end of World War II.